What's up, Twins fans? Thanks so much for clicking on this video. I'm actually going to do a kiss of death to this video and say, actually, I want you to click off of this video. Down in the description, I'm going to have a link to this guy's video, Chris Hanel. And it is honestly a breathtaking piece. A little more awkward to talk about this with you on here with me here, but honestly,
no, say more.
I understand a sliver of how much work that must have been, and even beyond the work, just really enjoyed it. So if you're watching this, please check that out. It is a longer video, so if you want to throw it into your watch later and circle back to it, do that. But definitely make some time for it. I understand that the losing streak is the topic of this video. I understand that that's a tough topic to discuss. On a recent live stream, I didn't even want to say it out loud.
I remember that, and I was like, "No, we can talk. It's okay. Let's process our trauma together. Let's do it."
That's kind of what this is, and we'll kind of get into this in this conversation, because I think this video has, coming from a voice of a Twins fan, really opened up things for me. So, I want to thank you for making it. But the first thing I want to ask you though is, does the streak end this year?
Oh, absolutely. Which I've said that the other 17, 18 times, but I get into it in the video, but I have to believe every single time. I have to get back up, which is why I love this team. And because it's one thing to cheer for a team that is a perennial basement dweller, where it's just your expectations are always low. This team, while it's had its bad stretches, always finds a way to just give you just that little bit of hope, or a lot of hope in some cases. But it's I can see this happening. Things are coming together. The timing is good. There's a lot of things about this year's team to be really excited about. So yes, I run at the brick wall of the postseason at full speed.
I love that. And I think that's too, there is that kind of tone in this video.
Yeah.
Throughout the video. And I think that's what I appreciate about it as well. I also think the streak is going to end. And I feel like if someone who, and we'll kind of get into the details of this project in a bit, but I feel like I wanted to ask that because I feel like if someone like you has sat and actually done the math, ran the numbers,
lots of numbers,
this deep of an understanding of how cursed this has been, just how to which the degree the baseball gods have been against us, and you still believe.
I believe.
Let's
do it. Yeah, I think that a lot of it is just it. Okay, so one of the things you're talking about, because you mentioned this video comes from the perspective of a Twins fan. So many times when we are experiencing media about the streak, it's always during a national broadcast when they're like, "Oh, we got to talk about the postseason, so now we have to drag you through this same story every single time from an external perspective." And it's always just this kind of condescending, "Oh, those lovable losers." No, there's a lot more to this story. And it's not just that they've lost 18 in a row. They've lost 18 in a row in the wildest of circumstances. In some cases where they were huge favorites, and somehow ball bounces the wrong way, an official makes a bad call, someone has a base running brain fart that has not happened the rest of the year, and Lucy yanks the football out and Charlie Brown's laying on the ground again. And you're like, how does this keep happening? And so after the 2020 playoffs, and seeing, especially at the end of game one, with the throw from Polanco to Arise at second base when they're tied in the top of the ninth, and it's happening again. It's what's going on? So that's where kind of the impetus of that coming is I don't know how to express this to a non-fan in a way that can convey to them just how hard this has been for Twins fans. And so it's okay, well, I know math. I will find the mathematical thing that explains just how unlikely this streak is. And that's kind of the thesis of the entire project.
Yeah, because this all kind of started with an article that you'd published at Twins Daily.
Yeah,
I think it was back in 2020. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah, it was pretty soon after. I think it was a few months after the 2020 playoffs, and it kind of been rolling around a little bit, and I'm a big fan graphs nerd, and so I was looking at the win expectancy charts of all of these games, and I noticed the trend where it's like the Twins were like heavy favorites in a lot of these. And I used to be a poker player, and so win expectancy is a big thing. And so it kind of came natural to kind of pair that together and be like, okay, well, if we were to take the win expectancy, like the maximum win expectancy of every single Twins game, what are the odds that they would lose all of those? And the video reveals the big number at the end, which there's an article in Twins Daily, so I'm not spoiling too much, but I will save that little bit for you to tune in and check that out.
Yeah, it was rewarding to have seen that and have that background, and to see, because that almost seemed like you started with a math problem, because at the time there was a Twitter conversation going around about some people were trying to put a number on, and it was like I think like 215,000 to 1 or something, which was
that's
not
the
even
coin
close.
Flip. That's the coin flip. Is if you flipped a coin 18 times, what are the odds that it would land on heads every single time? And it's like 216,144 to 1. It's in the video. I can't remember the exact number, but it's around the 200,000s. And then a guy named Andrew Woodruff sent a tweet to Aaron Gleeman, basically breaking down what the Vegas odds were every single time. And in Vegas odds, the Twins were underdogs most of the time. And so it's only like 28,000 to 1. And I'm like, that number is not indicative of at all of what this experience has been like. No, absolutely not. Yeah.
I think that motivation in a certain way is kind of, every fan has some kind of something like that itch at them, and like want to figure something out or look back on something. And I just think it's really interesting that, that has just launched this trajectory into this epic, almost 2-hour long, incredibly produced video.
I thought it was going to be 20 minutes when I started working on it, I swear. But there's just like, I'm a huge, you're going to watch this and you're going to see immediately, if you're familiar with SB Nation, Secret Base, Jon Bois, Alex Rubenstein, you're going to see the influence there immediately. I make no bones about it. I even have a credit, I'm like, with apologies to Jon Bois, Alex Rubenstein, another YouTuber, Bobby Broccoli, who I'm a big fan of, who has a very similar style. And I didn't want to make the Dorktown history of the Minnesota Twins, because that would just, 20 years later, I'd still be working on it. Yeah. But I wanted to focus on the streak, but I wanted to break down every single game. And I do tell a couple stories about players and other stuff from seasons along the way. We get into the game 163s because, God, we got to celebrate at least one win during this video. Oh my God. Otherwise, we'd need so much therapy at the end of it. But there's just so much to cover. This is a video about, 19 years and count. Like, it's funny because I think at the beginning of the video, I think I say 18 years because I started on the script a while ago and I forgot to go back and like, no, it's actually been more time now. It's actually longer than that.
Yeah, and you mentioned the kind of little side stories and little detours. I really enjoyed that because obviously the main focus is the playoff losing streak, and just like with anything with the Twins, that's sort of been the main focus, the main kind of through storyline. But really, you can look at this as a documentary of just like this entire run of just the Twins also, and it just happens to be that's the main conversation that's happened over this stretch. But yeah, there were lots of great, even like the Joe Mauer first base Gold Glove gripe. I'm
still so mad.
So
I remember at the time, like being so angry. Like I was like trying to find Rawlings' official website. Like, what's the voting criteria for this? I don't know. Like I was genuinely peeved because I'm such a huge Joe Mauer fan, and I'm a Joe Mauer apologist, and so like being a part of Twins fandom where there's this very loud vocal minority of people that were upset about Mauer's contract and his injuries and treated his injuries like they were a moral and personal failing. Like seeing Mauer that season batting over 300, playing great first base. Like I don't remember who won comeback player of the year that year, but I would have like made an argument for Mauer that season compared with how he had played the years before. but just being so excited to see him contributing at that level, you know, admittedly past his peak years, but it was all coming together. When he eclipsed 300, I remember 300 average. I remember making a graphic about it and just being like so pumped and so happy, and like he's a lock for Gold Glove. How? And then he wasn't even a finalist.
Yeah.
Like I had to talk about that for a little bit and just get that off my chest for sure.
Yeah, I enjoy it. Really helped with the flow for somebody like me who's like, oh, I don't know how I can get to it. It just felt like the pacing was really good in kind of getting out of that every once in a while and really having some really fun kind of nudges to Twins fans. And and anybody who's sort of thinking like, oh, okay, this is like a nerdy math thing, that's definitely in there. But there's also a lot of really I laughed out loud at a couple points. There's like a couple funny jokes mixed into there. So I think I think everybody's going to enjoy this one. I can't wait for people to get their eyes on it.
Oh, I know that when I've been talking to people about it, especially other Twins fans, or I've like posted it, I've mentioned it on like the Twins subreddit or on Twins Twitter or something like that. You definitely get a lot of Twins fans like, why would I subject myself to 2 hours of this same painful tale? And it's like, no. This is a hopeful story. Mm-hmm. Like this is a story that deals with a lot of struggles and pain and sad stuff, but to get to the core of basically asking the question, why am I such a fan of this team? Why am I still a Twins fan all this time? Why am I more excited now than ever to be a Twins fan? And that's really what the core thing is, and what the math is getting at is it's like, yeah, it's a nerdy math problem, but that's mostly just an excuse to really get into my own emotions tied into this franchise, and really explore that.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say, I think there's going to be some people not as familiar with you who will see this video, and I think I would if I wasn't familiar with you, and be like, okay, who's Moneybags that hired 18 editors to put this video together from the voiceover? How'd this guy steal Jon Bois-style to get him to put a video together? So maybe take a second just to briefly explain, you know, some of your background. We've talked about your background a bit as a Twins fan, but also just, you know, your history and video creation and things like that, and like how this came together for you.
So decades ago, like really in a past life, I was a filmmaker and I went to visual effects school. This is like 2003. So like the current technology that we have now, not even close. And I went to visual effects school. I went to LA and I worked as a filmmaker, and I did some writing and visual effects supervising. But then quickly I drifted. I have ADHD, which means like every once in a while, I have to change careers, because I just like, I'd always wanted to be a game developer. And I got into poker during the poker boom. I talk about that in a bit in the video. So I was working for like an online poker company, and then I became a game designer for a long time, shipped a game. And then during that started the company that I have now, which does broadcast graphics. We do score bugs and broadcast graphics and motion graphics for live streams and charity events and esports and stuff like that. St. Paul Saints, if you're interested, I would love to come do your score bug for you. Thank you very much. But it's this kind of skill has always kind of been in the background. Like it's influenced a lot of the stuff that I've been doing. And I haven't really been a content creator in any form for a decade. I've mostly just worked as a vendor, helping out other people with theirs. But the itch was always there. It just was a matter of finding the right idea and getting excited about the right thing. A client hired me to do a different thing, which caused me to pick up Blender, which is the 3D software that I used for the video, and started getting into the habit of using it a bit more and picking up a few more tutorials. And it's like, something clicked. I'm like, I know how to use this. And that plus the idea that I had was finally like, okay, I know how to do this. Let's just see where it goes. And apparently where it went was a lot of sleepless nights over the last few months to get this done. And in time for the playoffs, because man, that would have been a real heartbreaker if I didn't get this done before the postseason started.
It still would have been a story, and very shareable to look back on. But
we're still in the moment of it. We're still feeling this feeling. And either one of two things are going to happen. either the streak's going to be over, at which point we've had our catharsis, we've had all of our tears, and we've cleansed ourselves of this, or the streak has gotten even longer, which takes there's a real rewrite. It's not just, oh, I got to add on another chapter at the end. It's like, no, how do we think about this? Even because it's already so extreme that I don't know if I want to imagine having to write a 20 game losing streak. Like we're threatening to double second place in the record, but I think the second place is 13 by the Red Sox of the 70s and 80s. So
yeah, it's been brutal. It's been brutal. So yeah, that's what amazes me about when I was how much I was enjoying watching that. Because there have been some bigger baseball YouTubers that have done videos on this and done a good job.
Yeah,
but it's not been from this perspective. It's not been from the voice of a Twins fan. And I think there's probably like a decade kind of cohort of us who we are not old enough to truly understand the World Series, right?
Yeah.
We were alive during the World Series.
This is something I wanted to, I didn't get into in the video, but I was born in 1981. Sam Miller, who used to co-host Effectively Wild, who wrote for Baseball Prospectus and helped other places. I think it was him and Ben Lidberg on Effectively Wild made the argument. They were like, when would be the best time for your team to win the World Series in your life? I think the question was, you get 2 World Series. When do you want them to be won in your life? And Ben and Sam, I believe they agreed that they wanted it at age 10 and age 60. So young enough that it's right during your formative years of understanding baseball, and then at near the end of your life, but you're still young enough to be able to appreciate it and participate, right? And I was 10 years old when the 91 World Series happened. And I was 6 when the 87 World Series happened. And that's kind of my first baseball memory, was being given a book about the 87 World Series. And so in my mind at that time, the only way that I knew the Twins was as world champions, right? Yep. And I lived in Iowa. I didn't live in Minnesota. So I don't have regular access to Twins games. The only access I get to Twins games is when they're in the postseason or the random national broadcast, or my extended family who lived in Minnesota going to talk to them. So in my mind, the Minnesota Twins were this fantastical, amazing, invincible team, right? And yes, I started to understand that better as I got older, but that imprint doesn't leave. Like, that's still kind of this memory in my head of Gaetti and Gagne and Gladden and Herbeck and Puckett and that whole team, and just thinking that all of them were all-stars. Like the American League All-Stars were just all Minnesota Twins. I don't understand why you'd have any other players on the roster, right? So that really struck a chord for me. Like, I'm at that perfect age. And then, like, my dad went to high school with Harmon Killebrew's son, which I heard stories about, like Prior Lake High School class of 62 or something like that. And so all of my connections were just to like these high points of Twins fandom. Everything else, like all of the basement years, all of the dog days, like none of that in my register. And so I'm sure that definitely has an influence in terms of how I look at the team versus other people from different eras.
And I definitely connect with that. Like, the Twins are the superpower. They're going to win the World Series every couple of years. What do you mean? No, an 18 playoff losing streak. That's impossible.
And the Metrodome is an amazing baseball stadium. I don't see what the problem is with it at all. I would say my fandom has ebbed and flowed depending on where my life has gone, but the Twins have always been present. Especially just because, my childhood and my extended family always being in Minnesota. When I would go to visit my grandparents, if there was a Twins game on, it was on, and I was watching it with my grandpa. And he was very Minnesotan about the whole thing, where like the Twins would win a walk-off and he'd be like, well, how about that? And smile and then go on to the next thing. It's like, you are so Midwestern. Like, I'm screaming and jumping around the room, and he's like, oh, okay, well, the news is on now. Okay.
Is there anything else, you would want to kind of get out there? Obviously, there's so much covered in the visit. We have to be just exhausted at this point. But anything kind of that didn't come up in this interview that you want to kind of relay to Twins fans out there?
Twins fans as a fan base, I don't think we make enough allowance to, when we're going through the phases of grief, we don't stay enough in the sad part, and we go right to the angry part. And it's like, it's okay to be sad and not look to immediately place blame, right? It is, I watched these games so much that it's like, it's inconceivable to me, like, well, they didn't want it enough. It's like the most hackneyed sports. Of course, these players would want to win. All of these players want to win really badly. Anyone would in that situation. Some of this stuff is just absolutely inexplicable. They got super close and then something weird happened. How can your immediate move be to anger? Why can't we stay, let's be sad and supportive of the team? And I'm not saying we have to be apologists for everything and that it's like they're imperfect, can do no wrong, but to have empathy in those moments for the team and for ourselves, and to be like, it's okay to be sad. You don't have to jump right to anger. And so I think that I express a lot in this video. Like, I don't think I ever get angry about anything except for like, Phil Cuzzy.
Yeah.
I as you might expect, I dwell on that for a little bit, but it's mostly sadness and hope and optimism, which I think is a much healthier expression than shouting profanities at the TV screen. Which you can still do that. Like, they're not mutually exclusive, but yeah. So I would say to Twins fans, like, it's okay to still be excited. And I hope that when the streak breaks, not if, when the streak breaks, it will make it easier for us to enjoy success more, because there isn't that feeling of every little bit of success that the team has is about to be followed by running into that brick wall. And I think that will do us all a lot of good when that finally happens.
Yeah, in some ways it almost feels like we're in some kind of weird social experiment of fandom. Like we're the test subjects of this cruel study.
It is amazing that other fan bases are so excited for the Twins. It's really wild to see other fans be like, right now I am a Twins fan. I want success for your team and your fans so badly. Right now I'm rooting for you. Like, obviously it's a lot easier when we're facing the Yankees, which is a lot. But generally speaking, like when you're on the Twins subreddit game threads during the postseason, like you'll have all these people, I'm a Cards fan, I'm a Cubs fan, now I'm really pulling for you from Los Angeles or whatever. It's like, it's always this really nice feeling of seeing everyone rally and want that success for Twins fans, because they do see what's been happening and understand that that's total BS and no one should have to go through that.
I'm glad you mentioned a couple places that you hang out at or interact with, because, even though people that may not be familiar with you as a content creator, even though you've written some articles and things like that.
Yeah.
I've run into you a bunch of other places other than Twitter online. Like, so where kind of are some places where people can best interact with you? Obviously go to that video, leave comments on that video, subscribe to Chris's YouTube channel. But other than that, kind of what are some common places for you?
I mean, I was much more active on the Twin subreddit in 2017, 2018, 2019. I did a lot of Photoshops, a lot of memeing. I was really into participating there. I drifted away. It was really counterintuitive, because as the team got better, the fan base drew in a lot more people, and it's Reddit, so things got more toxic. And I just kind of like, this, I don't feel good. I'm not enjoying this game thread. I'm spending half the time being angry at people that are making comments about Buxton being injured or crapping on the team or fire Rocco. It's like, I don't need this in my life. I step away. But yeah, I've been on Twins Twitter. I'm not really on Twitter anymore either, because things have happened over there. I'm on Blue Sky now.
Toxic, you say?
Yeah, something. Toxic. gambling in this establishment? No, I have posted every once in a while on Twins Daily. It's been a while since I have, but every once in a while when I get the bug, I'll start writing something up. I still participate on the Twin subreddit every once in a while, if I've got time and I want to jump into the game thread or whatnot. But yeah, Blue Sky is where to find me the most. And then, like I say in the YouTube video, like, I don't know if more YouTube videos are going to follow after this one. If I find the right idea, all I know is I had a blast making this one. I'm exhausted. I'm going to go sleep for a week. But in the meantime, like, yeah, subscribe. I might come up with something more to work on. I still have this idea specifically about the 2018 season and the theory of maximum gut punch. Like, the 2018 Twins were a good team having the worst season ever. Do you remember the first few months of the 2018 season? It was like 9 walk-off loss. Like it was like seven walk-off losses in their first 13 away games. Oh, God. And there was this stretch where they would be down 9-0. They would come back and tie the game, and then they would lose. Like it was that over and over and over. And it's like, yeah, that's maximum gut punch. I think that's a Bill Simmons phrase from ages and ages ago, like levels of losing. But yeah, like that was definitely the Twins' quintessential experience that year. Like I would love to do some more writing on that if I can find the right angle.
Well, I love it. I appreciate the video. Again, like just the voice of the Twins fan coming out in that. And I hope, it'd be too much to expect, another project like this. But I hope this kind of inspires Twins fans who maybe kind of aren't on that content wheel like I am, that look at what I do and like, well, I can't do that every day, and can kind of maybe bring their own personal experiences of maybe for former jobs they've had or things they've tinkered with and make something of their own and share that with the fandom, because it really is special when someone in the community speaking from our shared kind of experience makes something. So
absolutely, yeah, like that voice being a part of it really adds so much flavor to it that doesn't come from the montage that ESPN puts together in the pregame show talking about, oh hey, this data point we have nothing further to add to. Let's let you relive that for a bit.
Yeah, 0-18 in 18 seconds is usually about how they do those.
Yeah. Oh, wow. There's the 10-word description of all of that. Ugh.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead. And again, remember, a link is down in the description. If you don't have an opportunity to watch it now, throw it in your watch later. Circle back to it. These Twins games, they got it locked up. You don't got to watch these that closely. Anyway, throw it on during commercial breaks or whatever. So thanks for joining me, Chris. To everybody else, we'll talk again soon.
Go Twins!